Let me start by talking a little bit about this whole micro apartment versus co-living versus rooming house thing that unfortunately has got so confusing through all the ads and all the Facebook content and all the stuff that different people talk about it. And the easiest way to understand it from an investor perspective is they're basically the same thing or the same type of thing. It's based on a concept where we take a single property, effectively split it into different rentable spaces, and then rent each of those to an individual or a couple. Now, where it becomes a little bit trickier and a little bit different is some of those names have actual legal definitions to them. Like, for example, what we do, we call it rooming houses because we decided quite a while ago that we were going to call things what they are. And even though rooming houses has a bit of stigma and a little bit of dark history because they've been around for about 100 years, is that we were going to actually rehabilitate the term a little bit because what we build has nothing to do with your old style rooming houses that evoke, people with alcohol problems and all sorts of behavioral issues. That has nothing to do with what we do. Now, the other names that I just mentioned before, they don't really have a definition, right? So co-living is really an American term, and it's a marketing term which Americans started using to reflect the fact that you can rent different rooms in a house to different people. Now, in most part of Australia, and particularly in Victoria, doing that is actually illegal, right? So you can't actually just take a 6-bedroom house or 7-bedroom house or whatever and just rent, the individual, have different leases with different people for different rooms. That doesn't really work in this country because the legal framework in this country says that anything over 4 people in a house, it's a rooming house. So what really has happened is there's a whole bunch of people who used to sell like NDIS properties and all these sort of positive cash flow properties. As finance for those things got harder, they just went like, oh, we can take the same product, relabel it, and then just sell it to a whole bunch of new people. So largely, these people selling co-living, all they're really doing is they're selling the same old 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 4-bathroom house, and they're just, trying to kind of shimmy it into what's a different strategy. But from an investor perspective, they're trying to achieve the same thing. And then micro apartments is a bit of an old school word. You will even see it in some of our material, which is it's an attempt at actually describing these rooms that get rented out, but where each room has all the facilities that a resident or a tenant will need to live independently. They have a kitchenette, they have their own ensuite, they're fairly independent, almost like a little studio apartment, and that's why we call them. They're not actual studio apartments technically, so that's why we, for a while, a number of years ago, used the word micro apartment to describe them, and there's plenty of people who had caught up on that trend and still call them micro apartments today. But that's literally the core of all of those things. So I guess from an investor perspective, they're trying to achieve the same things. They're largely just different market names for the same thing, or for people who are building properties who are not 100% compliant, and they're trying to kind of cover that fact.